The day my wife was buried, my son sent me a photo of a birthday cake. That was the moment I realized something inside our family had already died long before my wife ever did. My name is Alan, and I'm 54 years old. I used to believe family meant sacrifice, loyalty, and standing together when life became unbearable. But sometimes the people you raise with love grow into strangers who only remember you when they need something. And my son Jason learned that lesson the hard way. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fading hope. My wife Margaret lay quietly in the bed, her breathing shallow, her once bright eyes now dull with exhaustion. Cancer had taken almost everything from her in the past year, her strength, her laughter, and eventually her future. But one thing it never took was her love for our son. "Did Jason call?" she whispered one evening, her fragile voice barely louder than the hum of the machines. I hesitated. Jason hadn't called in 2 weeks. "He's busy with work," I said gently. She smiled anyway. "That boy always works too hard." I didn't tell her the truth, that Jason had time for everything except us. He had time for weekend trips with his wife Lily, expensive dinners, and posting smiling photos online. But calling his dying mother, apparently that was too much to ask. Margaret passed away 3 weeks later. It happened early in the morning, just as the sun was beginning to rise. I held her hand while the machine slowed, then stopped. 56 years of life, 30 years of marriage. Gone in a single quiet moment. And the worst part, Jason wasn't there. When I called him, he answered on the third ring. "Hey Dad, what's up?" His voice sounded cheerful. "Too cheerful." "Your mother is gone," I said quietly. Silence followed. Then he sighed. "Oh wow, I didn't expect it to happen so soon." Those words stabbed deeper than anything else. Not "I'm sorry." Not "Are you okay?" Just inconvenience. "We're planning the funeral on Saturday," I said. Another pause. "Saturday," he said, "that might be tough." My chest tightened. "Tough?" "Yeah, it's Lily's birthday. We've already booked dinner with her family." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. "Jason," I said slowly, "your mother is being buried." "I know, Dad," he replied impatiently, "but Lily's birthday only comes once a year." I felt something break inside me. Your mother only dies once too. But he had already made his decision. "I'll try to stop by after dinner," he said. "Maybe." He never came. The funeral was quiet. Rain fell steadily as friends and relatives gathered around Margaret's grave. People shared memories, cried softly, and offered condolences. But one person was missing. Our son. Several people asked where Jason was. I simply said he had something important. That night when I returned home alone, I checked my phone. There was a message from Jason. Not asking how the funeral went. Not asking how I was feeling. Instead, he sent a photo. Jason and Lily stood beside a huge birthday cake, smiling brightly. The caption read, "Happy birthday to the love of my life." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I turned the phone off. After Margaret's death, the house felt empty in a way words can't describe. Every chair reminded me of her. Every room echoed with memories. Jason didn't call. Weeks turned into months. Not once did he ask how I was doing. Eventually, I stopped expecting him to. I focused on rebuilding my life instead. I sold the family business, a small construction company I had spent 25 years building. The sale brought in more money than I expected. Enough to retire comfortably. Enough to live peacefully. But more importantly, enough to see who truly cared about me, and who only cared about what I had. 8 months after Margaret's funeral, Jason finally showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize him standing there. He looked nervous. "Dad," he said. I opened the door slowly. "Jason." He walked inside, glancing around the house like he hadn't been there in years. "Everything looks the same," he said awkwardly. "Yes," I replied, "some things do." We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Margaret used to serve dinner every night. Jason cleared his throat. "So how have you been?" "I buried my wife," I said calmly. "How do you think I've been?" He looked uncomfortable. "I know I should have come more often." "Yes," I said, "you should have." Silence filled the room. Then he leaned forward. "Dad, I actually came because I need your help." Of course he did. That was the moment I truly understood why he had come back. "What kind of help?" I asked. Jason rubbed his hands together nervously. "Well, Lily and I are planning to buy a house." I nodded slowly. "And the bank won't approve our loan unless we have a bigger down payment." I almost laughed. "So you came here for money?" "It's not like that," he said quickly. "Then explain it." He took a deep breath. "We need about $120,000, just as a loan. I'll pay you back." I leaned back in my chair. Jason continued talking, trying to sound convincing. "This house would be perfect for starting a family. Lily really loves it." There it was again. Lily. Everything revolved around Lily. Just like the day of the funeral. I looked at my son carefully. The same boy I had once taught to ride a bicycle. The same boy Margaret had stayed up all night caring for when he was sick. Now sitting here, asking for money. But never once apologizing. "Jason," I said quietly, "do you remember the day your mother died?" He froze. "Dad, do we have to talk about that?" "Yes," I said firmly, "we do." He looked down at the table. "I know you're still upset." "Upset," I repeated. "Your mother waited for you in that hospital bed for days." Jason said nothing. "She believed you would come," I continued. "Still nothing. You chose a birthday party instead." His voice became defensive. "It wasn't just a party." I stared at him in disbelief. "You're right," I said. "It was. It was the moment you showed me exactly who you are." Jason stood up suddenly. "Fine, if you're still angry, just say you won't help." "I haven't said that yet." He paused. Hope flickered across his face. "So you will help." I folded my hands calmly. "Maybe." His eyes lit up. "But first," I said, "I want to show you something." I walked to the living room and opened a drawer. Inside was a folder. I placed it on the table. Jason looked confused. "What's this?" "Your mother's final letter." His face paled. "She wrote it 2 weeks before she died." He hesitated before opening it. I watched silently as his eyes moved across the page. And slowly, his expression changed. First confusion, then shock, then guilt. His hands began to tremble. "Dad," he whispered. Inside the letter, Margaret had written something Jason never expected. She had left him her inheritance, $200,000. But there was a condition. A single condition. One that now felt painfully ironic. The letter said, "Give this money to Jason only if he shows that family truly matters to him. If he forgets what love and loyalty mean, then use the money for someone who understands it better." Jason's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know," he whispered. "No," I said, "you didn't." He looked up at me. "Dad, please." "For the first time in months, you came here because you needed something," I said calmly. He lowered his head. I made a mistake. Yes, I said. You did. A very long silence followed. Finally, he asked the question. So, will you help me? I stood up slowly and walked toward the window. Outside, the same tree Margaret used to sit beneath swayed gently in the wind. I already used the money, I said. Jason's head snapped up. What? I donated it. His face went pale. To who? A cancer hospice center, I replied. In your mother's name. Jason stared at me like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. You gave it away. Yes. That was my inheritance. No, I said calmly. It was your mother's love. And you proved you didn't value it. Jason left the house 30 minutes later. Without shouting. Without arguing. Just silent. For the first time in his life, he finally understood what his choices had cost him. I still see him sometimes. He calls more often now. Visits occasionally. But things are different. Some things once broken never fully heal. And maybe that's the lesson he needed.